Welcome back to the channel and a new video. So this was the tank that previously had my Neocaridina in, and they will be back in here, but I was using it as a place to grow wormwort, and now I've replaced that and got a different place to grow it. So I'd had this idea in my head for ages about how I wanted to scape this, and I've been and bought some rock. I'm not sure I'm happy with that rock, but let's crack on with it and I'll show you the steps and how I created it and sort of where that came from my mind. So I want to start off with I bought some sort of slate, like a black rocky slate, and the idea was I wanted to do like a corner, but within that corner, sorry if I'm knocking within that corner I wanted like a built up area with enough space behind it to plant a single plant. So I bought quite a few rocks. I'm going to shut up and speed this bit up. Quite like that. So my next bit is what I want to try and do is fill any gaps in at the back. So that my soil doesn't fall forward. And I can obviously fill this up with sand and stuff and gravel and what I need to. Got to remember how them pieces went. That piece there needs to go down a bit. And I'll bring that back. I'm going to just grab a little stick from somewhere. I could do with something probably smaller than these, but I want to make sure this goes in. And I can't get it to stay. There you go. So just literally just blocking them in, and any gaps we find down the back. I think the soil in the main will hold, but I'm not too worried if it doesn't. Cool. So if I remember, that was on top of there, and then this piece, I think this piece up there, just to hold that in place. So filter wool in. Next bit then is to get some soil in, and I need to open a bag of soil. I've got to be a bit careful with what I've got in stock, and what I didn't want was a leaching soil. So the soil that I'm using, I don't know if you guys can see that, is aquascape, and it comes in 2 kilo bags. It's the only size bag you can get it in. Fill up this back as much as I can, really, even if it means that I use all of the bag, and I'll use it for shrimp stuff anyway. But it's always a pain when you're using up your own stock because it's potentially stock that would sell. And right, so there's a gap here somewhere. Where's my gap here? I found it. So I'm going to try and just block this little gap up here. Well, there's 2 actually, so I found 2 gaps, but I can block potentially both of them. So that's one of them. And the other one is whether I can hide this, which is always a blooming pain, is there. what I want to try and do is hide that gap so that when this goes on top and pushes over, it blocks the gap up. So let's take these bits of soil out and let me just push, see if I can get some filter floss up there a bit more. I want to try and hide it so it's not visible from the eye, which it's done. Fantastic. So next I'm going in with the gravel, and all I wanted to do with the gravel, so I do want to put a bit, all I wanted to do with the gravel was just have a section here and I bought way too much as usual. So I just wanted a section as though we were getting rock to gravel. I bought loads of gravel for this. I'm only end up going to use in a bit. I will sort of push it into the corners and stuff, and I don't mind if it's up the if it's up the bit at the back, because that's sort of not the look that I'm looking for. Apologies for the jump from gravel to sand. So what I did here, I wanted sort of a rock to gravel and then filtering into sand. So I entered the sand, I put the sand out, leveled it out, and then after I did that, I grabbed a handful of gravel and just scattered it over the harsh line between the gravel and the sand to look like it was one was feeding into the other. The plants that I've chosen for this are, it's a single species, but two different types of the same species. Plants that I've chosen are root feeders, and the first one that we're putting in is Spiralis Red. I've got quite a few of them, so I always like to plant quite deep. And the other one is Spiralis Green, and I want to try and put, I've only got these literally two. When you see this after the event, this is literally 2 pots, so I've only used 2 pots of this plant. And once you see how many are there in the 2 pots, I think you'll be, well, as I am, I think you'll be quite surprised. So I'm having difficulty planting these for some reason. Maybe it's because the soil isn't wet. Maybe I should have planted them dry and then wet them, but never mind. We'll do what we can. I am going to, the idea was to try and plant quite heavily, and I might end up going in there with my fingers in a minute to plant. And this is a taller of the two, so I was hoping to sort of get a streaming effect. And one of the downsides to Spiralis is it can and does die off, but it often comes back. So people sort of buy it, it doesn't do well for them, and they decide that they're they can't grow that plant. But that's not always the case, guys. I am going to go in with fingers here just to be, because I want the placement where I want it. And I think the top of this is wet and the bottom is dry, and I think that's the difficulty I'm having with the tweezers. But hopefully we can get all of this in. So I've got, yeah, I'm going to get it in. So I've got that one. The bottom's definitely dry. I've got one more, which I'll literally just put right in the centre there. So that's the first planting. Now it's going to be fun trying to get the second planting, because I need to plant in front of what I've just planted. I probably should have planted backwards. And I'm not sure if I'm going to use 2 pots this time. I'll have to see how many's in each pot. There is still quite a few, but I'm going to plant them in pairs. So 2 at a time. Be a bit careful with this this structure. I mean, once it's in, it won't matter. So I should have probably sprayed this down some more and got it really nice and wet. But these will sort of send out runners, and hopefully I can just keep on top of the runners. But I am going to put the 2 pots in, and what I might do is spray it down a bit more. And hopefully when I fill it with water, they won't all float to the surface, which is a distinct possibility. I think we'll put some more in here. So nature isn't always uniform either, so I'm not too worried. But the idea was to get the Spiralis red at the back and then the Spiralis green at the front, and the red has come to me longer, so I'm hoping they all flow together. But ultimately I want that long flowing action going on. Let's just get that filled up off my auto top-up system. Hopefully the sand doesn't cloud it too much. I still need to do something after this has filled, so stay with me because you need to see the next step. So it's later in that evening. The tank is a little bit cloudy still. There's still bubbles. The filter is cycled and the soil doesn't leach ammonia at all. What I've done though is I've put a piece of wood in that I'm going to finish the scape off with, and in the process, while I was doing stuff, I actually kept my shrimp in a jar, and there's a few small baby endler guppies in there. Snails that are going back in have been kept in the jar, and then likewise the rabbit snails that will be going in there. But I have got a filter in this one, so I'll put the sponge tops on because they climb out, and I have got a filter in that one, so they'll probably be okay overnight. Well, I hope they'll be okay overnight. But let's put the shrimp and fish back in. I'm not going to do anything special with these guys. I am literally just going to tip them in. And there is a piece of cuttle bone in here as well, which will probably fall out. So there may be the odd snail in as well. And I think we may have lost one shrimp. Oh, there's one more still in there. And this will clear up tomorrow, but for now we've got our shrimp in. I may put the pink ram's horns in as well, but the plants have lifted up a bit now, and I've just found something that I desperately need out of that tank, a piece of hornwork from the previous encounter. I put the ram's horns in as well. What I absolutely love about ram's horn are their ability to fill themselves up with air and float around and move around all over the place. I think it's absolutely fascinating. It's the next day here and things are starting to take shape. So I have put a piece of gnarly wood in there, but I have had to put a bit of rock on there to sort of hold that down. And once that's sort of completely submerged, I'll position that to where I want to get it. But it's now time to put our rabbit snails back. So as expected, they did well in there might be some other bits and pieces in there. They did well in the pot with the filter. So the big one's absolutely stunning. Now I have put a piece of cuttle bone behind the plants, and I've also capped the plants with gravel. So there was something missing, didn't look right, so I've capped them with gravel, sprinkled some gravel as though it's falling down over this sort of rock bed, and we'll put these snails back in now. So there is a bit of an imposter in there. Well, he's not an imposter, he just needs to go in this tank because I want the yellows only to go in here. First snail to go in then is this little cappuccino, and he's got some damage to the back end. Now I am going to keep this a lot higher than I previously did with TDS and calcium. Then we've got going in the smaller of our 2 yellows. Then Big Bertha. So she's a good size, she is. Let's drop her onto sand. Then we've got another yellow. I do have a random nerite. So I believe this is a batic snail, and again that's got a bit of damage on the back, but the batic can go in because that's not going to do any harm. And then we've got the other rabbits, which are a different type, so those are going to go in my other tank next to it. Doesn't take Bertha long to come out though. I will feed these actually, because there won't be much algae in here for these guys to sort of feed on. And hopefully they don't take a fancy to my plants. Thought it would be interesting to show you a few different size variations of the other species. So the rabbit snail does give birth to live young. So they actually give birth to a little fully formed snail shell and everything. Now we're almost finished, but not quite. But this is a great opportunity for me to ask you guys, if you enjoy this type of content, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button. It all adds to the stats, helps our videos get in front of more people, and hence helps us to grow. So with all that being said, let's carry on and get to the next section of the video.